It's Monday, and you know what that means. The Jersey First Television Network probably brings to you the latest edition of Real Talk. And certainly, ladies and gentlemen, I am the generational talent in Garden State Media, and I'll continue to be your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe. Once again, happy Monday to all of you. Hopefully, you got your brackets in order. Hopefully, some of your teams are advancing to the Sweet 16s during March Madness for both the men and women's tournaments. And of course, baseball's right around the corner this week. I'm excited as a diehard Yankee fan. And let's see how the Yankees do this season as they're going after World Championship number 28. But again, folks, I want to thank you all for tuning in from wherever and however you may be doing so on this Monday, March the 23rd. Again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. It takes a few seconds, folks, to show your support for fearless independent journalism. It's always here, Real Talk with Jersey First TV. Folks, again, I can't say enough. Make sure you like us on Facebook, of course. Follow us on Instagram and X, and certainly on our YouTube channel. Make sure you check out all the great content brought to you by Jersey First TV. Of course, brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap return here on the Jersey First Television Network. And of course, brand new episodes of Real Talk every Monday night live. Check your local listings for start times. And of course, whether you get your podcasts on Spotify or SoundCloud, download Jersey First and listen to it anywhere at any time. Folks, I can't say enough. Really leading the way here with Jersey First TV, of course, always educating and advocating for the residents of the great state of New Jersey. We're doing it here every week on Jersey First TV. Folks, a jam-packed show here. You want to stick around for final thoughts? I'm going to have a lot to say about really, I hate to sort of pick on them because I like them personally, but there's no shortage of bad actors here in New Jersey, folks, whether it's in academia, activism, or media. But I have a little bit of a problem with Terrence McDonald from the New Jersey Monitor. And certainly today's rally in Trenton, I think, speaks volumes about, quite frankly, how many New Jerseyans are tired of New Jersey being a sanctuary state and the way we coddle illegals. I think there's more context. And I really didn't like the way Terrence went about it in the Morning Monitor, but more on that a little bit later. Folks, you definitely want to check that out. And of course, folks, certainly over the weekend, a lot to discuss about what's going on in the 11th Congressional District. Folks, there's a clear choice in the district, and I got to tell you, it's not Ana Lilia Mejia. And the latest display of what I would call cowardice, I think, really amplifies, quite frankly, how dishonest a lot of progressives tend to be. They swear they're populists, but they're more like bullshit artists. More on that later on during Final Thoughts. You definitely don't want to miss out on that. And folks, of course, without a doubt, yes, we'll talk about that statement later. And certainly, folks, a special comment coming up. Yes, this weekend, Cat Ladies and Karens unite as the No Kings rallies will be all across New Jersey. I'll tell you why, once again, this is an incredible waste of time by these children. More on that later during a special comment, folks. You'll definitely get some good humor from me about these children coming up this weekend with their antics and the little temper tantrums coming up later in the show. Folks, again, like, comment, and share tonight's episode here. Again, we're talking about the topics and the races that nobody else is talking about and talking to candidates much more at full length and in depth. And of course, speaking of the 11th Congressional District, let me tell you something. You know what? There's one candidate that doesn't really like doing media. And of course, whenever she does media, there's soft landing pads like, garbage journalists like Uncle Dave, David Cruz, and others. But on this show, folks, we ask real questions because we want real conversations because it's Real Talk. So why not talk to a real candidate? Folks, he's a Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District coming up. He's my good friend and a fan of the show, apparently, folks. He's the great Joe Hathaway. Joins us live right now. Joe, welcome.
Hey, Fernando. Thanks so much for having me. Great to be on.
Great. Let's get started, man. And again, obviously running in the 11th Congressional District special election after the Empress, obviously, decided to step down from her seat there in the House of Representatives to ruin New Jersey, much like she ruined the 11th Congressional District. Now she can do it as governor. We'll see what happens in the next 4 years. But certainly a very interesting race coming up in the special election on April 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Joe, I've seen your record as mayor. I've seen you as a very commonsensical, not even conservative, just a commonsensical executive and a guy talking about real world, everyday issues. And why are you the best candidate coming up on April 11th?
Well, thanks, Fernando. And again, with this special election coming up, it's actually on Thursday, April 16th.
Sorry.
Governor Murphy liked to make it on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday. You'll have to ask him why we did that. But listen, you're exactly right. This race is a critical one right now, especially for Republicans in our district and really for everyone in this district, because this race is a clear choice between common sense, practical Republican leadership and far left radical socialist ideology. Quite frankly, I believe that folks in this district do not want that brand representing them down in Washington. I got in this race because I've been able to serve at the local level, get results. And I think we need that kind of mayor's mindset down in Washington, fixing the problems we have here in Jersey, someone who knows on the ground level the problems that we have here in Jersey and can bring federal resources back up to help fix them.
Absolutely. And again, let's get into the most pressing needs in the 11th congressional district. And the first one that comes to mind for me, though, Joe, is infrastructure. Is that fair to say?
Sure. Look, I mean, during my term last year as mayor, we were front and center with those Route 80 sinkholes that we had to deal with, and the spillover across Route 10 and throughout my community was a huge challenge. Just one of many infrastructure problems that we have in this district, whether it's roads or rail. And so you're absolutely right, Fernando. Infrastructure is going to be a key issue for our district. We need to make sure that we're sending someone down there who can work together with both sides of the aisle, quite frankly, to make sure we have that investment to come back here to New Jersey. Transportation has been a big part of our platform, whether it's one-seat rides in and out of New York City or reinvesting in our roads to make sure that communities across the district have safe, accessible transportation. So it's a big one, but look, it's one of those issues where we have to be able to come to the table and have someone who knows the challenges, knows what it takes at the local level to then go execute down in Washington.
No, well said there. It's interesting because progressives during this election cycle, whether it's here in New Jersey or throughout the country, seem to be running on this sort of, erroneous mantra of, whether it's F ICE or abolish ICE or everything. And again, folks, not to put on my academic hat here, but quick little civics lesson here. Again, ICE is part of the Department of Homeland Security. Obviously, ICE was formed in 2003 after the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. And certainly Republican and Democrat administrations alike have been able to utilize ICE to remove dangerous illegals from our cities all across this country, Joe, for decades. And, some presidents have deported more people than others. It's as simple as that. But it's funny to me how the low information voter just falls for this talking point by a lot of the left when it comes to, it's not just about, you can't just abolish ICE. It just doesn't happen with the stroke of a pen. It would have to take monumental legislation in Washington. That's just not going to happen under what we see right now under DHS. And now, again, I'm intellectually honest. Do ICE agents perhaps need more than 47 days of training? Certainly. I'm not going to argue that. As someone who worked in criminal justice, I'm all for that. Do ICE agents, should they have body cams? Sure. Other law enforcement do it as well. I don't have an issue with that. But this vilification that seems to be going on, and this deputizing by many progressives like your opponent and others within our party about vilifying ICE, villainizing this agency, when it's a tall task to remove dangerous illegals from all across our communities. And she just thinks she could just get to the finish line by just saying, well, abolish ICE, abolish ICE. It's just not that simple, Joe.
Well, Fernando, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, look, this is another clear point of differentiation between what actual practical leadership looks like and what spewing ideology from someone who's built a career as a community activist looks like, right? Abolishing ICE or defunding the police, which in Anna Lily Mejia's previous role with the Working Families Party was a big part of their platform, even doing trainings on how to defund police in local communities. I mean, these, not only are they unrealistic, they're downright dangerous policies for young families, for everyday people in our district who come to this part of the state and live here because they support the men and women in law enforcement and support people in our local communities who protect us. And look, I think you're spot on when it comes to the ICE situation. Look, we have to be able to do a few things at once here. Can we, first of all, I think everybody agrees that we need to get illegal criminals committing heinous crimes against Americans out of our communities and out of our country. I think everybody can agree on that. If we want to come to the table and talk about ways that ICE can reform certain operations, like you mentioned, better technology, better training, de-escalation. I mean, these are all good things that will help them be more effective getting the bad guys and making sure we're keeping everyday Americans safe. But look, as you know, and I'm sure many of your listeners know, the other big part of this challenge is the fact that in New Jersey, in a sanctuary state, our local PD, like mine in Randolph and across our communities, cannot have any knowledge, any interaction with federal officers. And so they can't do their job when it comes to keeping American citizens safe. Right? If folks do choose to protest or want to be out there, right, our local PD has a role to play in keeping people safe. I think we got to be able to do both of these things at once. But when you have a candidate like my opponent who just shouts defund police, that doesn't solve anything for anybody. And it makes us way less safe as Americans and as New Jerseyans.
I mean, it's nice to say defund the police from a nice little suburban home with a nice white picket fence. I mean, I'll say that about Anna Lilia, you know. Again, it just it beats the hypocrisy, folks, about some of these progressives that are running on this virtue signaling when at the end of the day, you said it perfectly during the summer of love, right? When BLM rioters were looting and destroying property. Yeah, defund the police. Yeah, no problem. When, country club liberals can do that from their gated communities. But guess what? Poor black and brown people need police. And we need ICE agents in New Jersey to get rid of dangerous criminal illegals. We just saw another death over this weekend at the hands of a dangerous illegal. So it's interesting about how the party has veered so much left, but really it sort of lends itself to the next big topic I wanted to cover with you. And obviously over the weekend, your opponent's campaign has got a lot of flack by independents, by conservatives like myself, and even some within our own party, where, let's be honest, folks, the League of Women Voters has become, an arm of the Democrat Party here in New Jersey. They're a nonprofit, but they're about as objective and neutral as I have a full head of hair. I mean, let's be honest about this. And when you're even shunning them, I think that speaks volumes about A, the arrogance, and B, just the level of cowardice in not wanting to debate you, Joe. Joe, if you were some crazy conservative that was picketing in front of an abortion clinic, I'd be the first one to say, hey, listen, Joe, you maybe have to tone it down. That's not the case with you. So the idea that she can't even debate her ideas on their merits and is just so timid to even be on a stage with you, I think it speaks volumes. I mean, it's indefensible, Joe.
Well, Fernando, like you said, I mean, the biggest thing, I think it's a complete disservice to the voters of our district who we are asking them to vote to send us to Congress of all things. And her unwillingness to stand in front of them and put her ideas out there and have me put my ideas out there, at the end of the day, it hurts voters, especially in a special election, especially when it's not November and there's all other circumstances going on. Voters deserve to hear Ms. Mejia's point of view and my point of view side by side to help them make a choice. But listen, it doesn't just start with the League of Women Voters, Fernando. I mean, this is the fourth debate that she's tried to dodge and avoid having with us. And look, I came out right away and said, Anna Lilia, whatever your issue is, if it's the moderator, if it's the venue, if it's the day of the week, you choose. I'm willing to put it on any terms you want.
I mean, listen, I mean, is it the room temperature? Do we need a nice crisp 68 degrees?
Well,
do we need a kosher meal for half the audience before 3 o'clock? Come on.
Well, and Fernando, but here's the worst part, right? Is we're willing to come to the table with any stipulation she wants to give people an opportunity to hear us. But then you have this second statement that came out from the League of Women Voters saying that there was never an issue with the moderator. They were very clear that the moderator was someone of diverse background, of South Asian descent. So what's really troubling to me, and where I think Anna Lilia Mejia has a big problem now, is that if she is willing to lie about something as straightforward as why she doesn't want to debate me in a congressional debate, what else will she be willing to lie about to voters if it placates her ideology, right? And like you said earlier, this isn't just something that conservatives or unaffiliated voters have taken issue with. Her own party, the League of Women Voters, like you said, certainly a left-leaning organization, her own party, I think, is starting to see the hypocrisy of someone who claims to be unbossed and then tries to strong arm the League of Women Voters. I mean, it doesn't get more political boss than that. So she's got a real problem on her hands. She has a real integrity problem on her hands. And voters are going to remember that when they go to vote on April 16th.
I mean, and again, and what a slap in the face to women. And interestingly, the party that many can't tell you what a woman is, are being openly defined against women. And now, again, listen, I have my issues with the League of Women Voters and what their platform is, but again, these are women from all walks of life. And to be this fickle about moderator, and again, and I'll get into her statement later, which I'll read on the air, but it just seems so disingenuous. Like, what do you need? It's like, I mean, I hate to throw this out there, being Hispanic, I mean, having dated so many Latinas, it's like, oh my God, like what are we nagging about now? Like, you're getting everything almost handed to you in the sense of what day of the week, what do you want as a moderator, what town, what's being served, a refreshment, like what more do you need in a district that tends to lean more blue. We have to be honest. But again, I think this is an easy way to turn off independents, which you need to win. Again, during the Democrat primary, Democrats came out in big numbers, but now you need to win over independents, to your camp. And this isn't helping.
No, it's not. But look, I think at the end of the day, Fernando, the real crux of this is that Ana Lilia Mejia does not want to stand side by side with me on a stage, because she knows that what I'm going to tell voters is the same thing I've been telling them from day one. It's the same thing I'm going to tell them here today on your show, which is that I'm a common sense, practical, independent-minded leader at the local level who wants to go to Washington to get things done, to fix our problems, put politics aside, and get to work. We need a whole lot more of that type of independent leadership down in Washington. And that doesn't fit the lazy politics mantra that she's been trying to paint of Joe's an extremist and these kind of things. It won't fit her narrative if she allows voters to see me stand next to her and compare my common sense, practical point of view with her radical ideology that pushes back against our law enforcement community, that promotes, socialist economic policies and takes, radical positions against our Jewish communities too. So, she doesn't want to do that because it won't fit her narrative, and voters will see that the choice is clear for this election.
Now, I know during her primary, obviously, AIPAC played a big role in almost deciding that race. What are you hearing, Joe, from even Jewish constituents in that district where, let's be honest, a lot of progressives lean very left when it comes to coddling rhetoric, when it comes to being anti-Israel, in many instances being anti-Semitic. We've seen Ana Lilia be more than happy to go to college campuses. A lot of these jihadists that are there openly, harassing Jewish faculty, Jewish students. I mean, again, going back to our days of the New Jersey Working Families Party, this isn't some neutral, middle of the road organization. This is as far left as it gets in New Jersey. And when you are get endorsed by them, I mean, it speaks volumes, I think, about how out of touch you are.
Oh, 100%. Look, our district is about 11% Jewish in population. My community in Randolph has a strong Jewish population. And I remember very specifically, just a few days after October 7th, going to the synagogue in Randolph. I was on the council at the time, and just being together with families, probably about 100 Jewish families, kids, moms, dads, dealing with the aftermath of the attacks, dealing with the uncertainty, the sadness, the anger, but trying to be there and come together as a community to deal with this horrific event that none of us will ever forget. Now, at that same time, what was Ana Lilia Mejia doing in the aftermath of those attacks? Well, I can tell you, she was on Twitter behind a keyboard 3 days after the attacks, blaming Israel for the attacks by Hamas terrorists, never once mentioning the terrorists themselves. But that was just the beginning of her anti-Semitic rhetoric. You only have to look back into this primary when she sat in a synagogue and said that she doesn't believe that Israel has a right to exist in its ancestral homeland. Or when she was the only Democrat out of all 11 candidates, 11, Fernando, she was the only one to raise her hand and say that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza. So this is a position that is far out of step with people in our district. I believe we need to stand firmly with our Jewish community, firmly with our allies in Israel. And she has another major challenge on her hands here with, a large group of voters that maybe tend to lean Democrat. But in this race, they're taking the common sense Republican over someone who spouts anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Joe, I mean, you come across to me as, again, you mentioned a common sense Republican, common sense conservative. I think even a moderate to in some regards as well. But obviously, the last few months have been tough for Republicans in New Jersey. We all saw what happened last November. Some optics played a role in that. Obviously, the shutdown last fall, after Labor Day, really, right around Halloween, really hurt Republicans in the state here legislatively. Obviously, we saw Mikey Sherrill in what we thought was going to be a close race, like 2 or 3 points. That was not the case. Republicans lost seats in the legislature. And it just seems like Democrats are kind of riding this, I'll use a sports term here. They seem to think they have the wind to their back. There's this dislike for the president throughout parts of New Jersey. There's some talks about, well, maybe Republicans need to distance themselves from the president and perhaps the MAGA wing of the party. But I would argue that I think Republicans in general and independents look at someone like you that is not an ideologue, that has executive experience at a local level, being the mayor of Randolph, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So you have the experience there. So the idea of trying to paint you, and I see it already on social media, defenders of Ana Lilia Mejia, whether it's in academia, whether it's in activism, whether it's in establishment media, you name it, they're trying to paint you as like this sort of MAGA cultist. And like, that's not the case. Like, your social media doesn't reflect that. Your policies as a mayor don't reflect that. So I just think it's lazy writing, as Deadpool would say in the movie, like, oh, that's just lazy writing when it comes to trying to portray you. What do you want to say to cynics or people that are on the fence about Joe Hathaway as a candidate?
Well, I think you're right, Fernando. I think it is lazy politics, because people only have to look at everything I've said from day one of this race. Look, for me, this race, we have to remember, right, what people are voting for right now. They are voting for someone to represent them down in the House of Representatives. That is literally the role. My job when I go down to Washington is to represent the people of NJ11 and to always vote or enact policy or do anything that I believe is in the best interest of our district. Now, I'm a Republican. We have a Republican president. We have a Republican majority. I think there's a lot of good things our party is getting done for people in our district. I mean, you look at some of the things the Trump administration has been able to do with increasing the SALT deduction, getting that up to $40,000. We need to keep going there, but that's a great step in the right direction. No tax on Social Security, no taxes on tips, right? These are all things, we talk about affordability in New Jersey. These are things that are putting money back in people's pockets. These are incredibly good programs and platforms for our district. We talk about things like border security. I mean, the fact that we've seen fentanyl deaths in our state and across the country decrease as much as they have in the last year, that is huge for so many families who've been dealing with that issue in our district. I'm incredibly supportive of those things. And look, at the same time though, right, if the president or if other folks in Washington are doing things that I don't think are in the best interest of our district, then I'll push back on it, because that's the job at the end of the day. So, if it's something like the Gateway Tunnel that we've talked about, right, where, look, I came out and said, look, I don't think the president should be playing politics with something as important to my district as the Gateway Tunnel. It's a whole lot of jobs. It's a big commuter district, right? This is something we got to get done and we got to move forward. But look, at the end of the day, I mean, that's what the job is. And I think voters will always want to take someone who they know is going to put their interests first before anything, over someone who's just going to cling to the far left of her party, be a squad member. And look, don't forget too, Miss Mejia, her platform coming up to this race was any old blue won't do. So not only is she not willing to come to the table if it means getting something done with Republicans for her district, she's not willing to come to the table with moderates in her own party if they don't buy into her radical socialist ideology. That is a big problem. It is something that I believe the voters of this district will reject completely come election day.
And it's interesting because, Joe, you like to think that Trump derangement syndrome has a shelf life. At some point, like, you can't keep recycling the same old points. Listen, here in New Jersey, the governor has only been in office a few weeks, and okay, instead of addressing energy and other things, it's about suing the Trump administration. It's about, again, TDS, and it just seems like when you have the big, beautiful bill, for example, and we'll see now during tax season, right? We'll see people doing their tax returns, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security benefits, other dynamics that should benefit. Child tax credits, okay? You're a dad, you have many kids, right? That should help fathers and like you and your wife and other families. These are the things we have to focus on. And it just seems like Ana Lilia Mejia and the progressive wing of the Democrat Party, which, again, even moderate Democrats are seeing this wing of the party hijack it, and they don't care. It just seems like they're so anti-Republican, so anti-common sense principles and politics that it just seems like they want to keep playing politics. Case in point, whether it's funding TSA, whether it's other dynamics of the federal government, it just seems like Democrats are showing their hand. For any car players, that's the problem there. And again, let's make sure we get Joe back here in a second, folks. Just bear with me here. We have Joe Hathaway here. Just folks, if you just joined us live right now, it's 5:24 here on the East Coast. My guest tonight, just some technical difficulties real quick here. We'll get Joe back on as soon as possible here on the program. Okay. Joe, you back on? Joe, you back on?
I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay, great.
There we go. Awesome. Sorry about that.
No, listen, folks, it happens. It's technology. What can you do?
Again, I can hear you.
If you just joined us live right now, folks, like, comment, and share tonight's episode. My guest is Republican candidate in the 11th Congressional District coming up on April 16th, right? Is that what you said? April 16th? For the special election And my guest is Joe Hathaway here on the show. We're about to wrap up with Joe Hathaway in just a moment here. But Joe, as I just mentioned, it just seems like just being anti-Trump shouldn't be enough for voters. You want to go to Washington to resolve problems for the constituents. It's not just about hating Trump. At some point, you have to legislate. Joe, do you hear me? Joe, I'm not sure.
You're absolutely right, Fernando. Yeah, I can hear you. And look, I think I was just going to say, Fernando, I think you're absolutely right. Look, we need to send people down to Washington who remember that the role of the representative is to get things done for the people they represent. And I believe, regardless of party, if you send more people down to DC that have led at the local level, that have that mayor's mindset, that know how important it is to get things done for the people they represent, otherwise they'll be out of a job. We send more people down with that mindset, we'll see Congress lead once again. Someone said to me recently, how do you lead in Congress? And I said, the way Congress leads isn't by clinging to ideology. It's by actually coming to the table, sometimes with people who don't agree with everything you do. Because the way we lead as Congress people is to actually get legislation to move forward, to set the tone, to set the direction of the country in terms of the laws that we pass. The only way to do that is to send someone down who's got the practical experience, enough common sense, and enough independent thinking to do what's right for his district. The more we send down people like Ana Lily Mejia, who just want to spout the radical ideology of their wing of the party, the less we're going to get done. And the more Americans and New Jerseyans are going to be left frustrated and at ends about how we're going to ever stop our tax increases and the things we deal with on the ground. So the choice, I believe, for voters is going to be incredibly clear for this election.
Folks, again, if you just joined us live right now, we're approaching 5:30 here on the East Coast. We're about to wrap up here with Republican candidate in the 11th Congressional District, Joe Hathaway, here on the show. Like, comment, and share, ladies and gentlemen. It takes a few seconds to show your support for fearless independent journalism here with Real Talk. Joe, you can hear me, right? Joe, you can hear me? I hope you can. Okay. If you hear me,
yes,
Joe,
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Again, we're just about to wrap up here. I know you have an event to get to. I want to make sure you get there.
Oh,
but again, before I let you go, you've been a great guest here tonight. I'm pulling for you, man. You're a common sense candidate, and in the 11th Congressional District, again, those constituents deserve someone that's not going to play politics, that's not going to be an ideologue, that has common sense, real world experience. That's you, Joe. So again, I want to wish you the best of luck with your campaign, and certainly any handles, any websites, and again, any social media information you want to drop in real quick before we let you go. Okay, folks, we're just experiencing technical difficulties here with Joe Hathaway. Just bear with us here. We're trying to get him back on here, folks. Again, just hang on there. We'll get Joe back on in a moment. Again, folks, it happens, whether it's Ethernet, Wi-Fi, it happens, folks. But again, if you just joined us live right now, it is 5:30 exactly here on the East Coast. And my guest tonight is Republican candidate in the 11th Congressional District. And that's Joe Hathaway, the mayor of Randolph, New Jersey. He's our guest tonight. Hoping to get him back on within the next couple of minutes here. I know he does have to go. Okay, let's try to see if we can get Joe here. Joe, you with us, sir? Joe, you with me?
Hey, Fernando. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. We're at an event hall, so on the trail.
Problem, yeah.
So
I get you. So listen, before I let you go, I want to give you the last word here. Again, why are you the best option on coming up on April 16th in the 11th Congressional District? The evidence is there. The body of work is there. But for undecided voters, anyone in general coming up on April 16th, some handles, website information. But why are you the best choice coming up?
Well, yeah, look, and everything we talked about today, all your viewers can find right on our website. It's joehathaway4congress.com. If folks are excited and energized and get what we're all about, they can join us there too to learn how to volunteer and to support the campaign. But look, at the end of the day, the choice in this race is incredibly clear for voters. This race is all about the future that we want for our district, the future we want for New Jersey, and for our country too. And the choice here is one of common sense, practical leadership that's about New Jersey, that's about solving our problems with practical solutions that we know we can get done back here at the local level, or more ideology that is going to push us further and further towards the cliff of socialism that we are seeing continue to move forward here in our country. And it's a bad, bad policy platform to be on. When we see what's happening in New York City and how it's starting to encroach over here to New Jersey, that's the choice for everybody here today. I believe the vast majority of our district is going to choose common sense every time. And that's why we're going to win this thing in April.
Joe, a quick lightning round before I let you go, because we've talked to Joe Hathaway, the mayor, the candidate, but let's just talk to Joe Hathaway, the guy. So quick lightning round here for you, so our audience get to know you. Favorite MLB team and why?
The Mets. Grew up with them, even though they break my heart every year.
Okay. Favorite Met all time?
What was it?
Favorite Met all time?
Oh, Met all time? Oh, for me, Mike Piazza growing up, yeah.
Okay, great. Listen, if you get good, healthy starting pitching, the lineup hits, Carlos Mendoza won't be on the hot seat. We could maybe see a special season in Queens. We'll see. NFL team.
Jets also. So
okay. My dad's a big Jet fan. What do you expect out of this Jet team in year 2 of Aaron Glenn?
I expect another early pick in the first round, let me tell you.
Okay. NBA and NHL.
Not a huge, grew up a Nets fan. I remember back in the Jason Kidd, Kerry Kittle days the New Jersey Nets were my team. And my first hockey game ever was the 2000 Devils Stanley Cup against the Avalanche.
Great.
So
that's a great awesome team. Great team. Great championship team. I know you got some kids in the house. It's a family environment. Marvel or DC fans in the house?
Oh boy, well, mine are still a little young. My oldest is 6. He's getting really into Harry Potter these days. But if we got to go DC or Marvel, we're going Marvel.
Okay. Favorite American president and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I still think you got to say Abraham Lincoln, not just as the father of the Republican Party, but you talk about someone who saved America from the brink of utter collapse and what he had to go through. No president has ever had to go through more or had to guide us through a more difficult time in our nation's history. So it may be the obvious choice, but I think for a good reason, it's Abe Lincoln.
I don't want to get you in trouble here, but favorite cuisine and favorite restaurant in the 11th Congressional District?
Oh, so I guess, favorite cuisine, I'm a big steak guy. I like a nice rare steak. And, there's something about getting one of those over at Roots in Morristown on a date with my bride it's hard to beat. Doesn't happen too much right now with 3 little kids under 6, but that sounds like a pretty good night for me, Fernando.
Again, folks, you have choices coming up in the 11th Congressional District. The best choice is my guest tonight. He is Republican candidate Joe Hathaway. Joe, I want to wish you the best of luck, man. Go get it. Get across the finish line. Come up on April 16th. And once you are in that seat, I expect you back on here regularly on Real Talk. Can you promise me that, sir?
100%, Fernando. As congressman, I would love to come back, and we'll talk about what we're going to continue to do to help fix New Jersey and represent New Jersey well down in Washington. Thanks again for having me.
Best of luck to you, folks. He's Joe Hathaway running in the 11th Congressional District coming up on the special election on April 16th. Folks, you have options. Joe Hathaway is the best one. Folks, again, let's thank Joe tonight. Joe, appreciate your time, and best of luck to you on the campaign trail. And thank you for coming on Real Talk.
Thanks so much, Fernando. Really appreciate it.
Have a good night. Folks, good stuff there with Joe Hathaway, again, running in the 11th Congressional District. And folks, a good choice. It's as simple as that. And, it's interesting to me during this election cycle, folks, because, we've been hearing a lot about, especially here in New Jersey, right? We have a Democrat governor, a Democrat-controlled legislature. And it seems that with everything going wrong in New Jersey, right, it seems like blaming Republicans never gets old, right? And I don't know about you, but it has gotten old. Okay. Energy prices are still perhaps the highest in the country. Property taxes are at an all-time high. They're the highest in the country, by the way. We keep seeing the gas tax go up again this year. And folks, and let's be very honest here. Before all of you start, going crazy, menstruating about gas prices now, for a lot of you, especially those that identify as left and are Democrats or progressives or whatever, we were funding endless money into Ukraine during that war and gas was going up. Not a peep from those Democrats or those on the left in New Jersey. But now suddenly you have a problem, right? Like that's the problem with many on the left, folks. It's like you're just not philosophically consistent. or intellectually honest. And this race is another good example of that. This race is an example of a far left socialist who worked. Now, again, I don't have a resume in front of me, but I think it's fair to say that the only work she's ever done is just being a professional activist. Folks, I'm not sure if that's work, if that's real work. Okay? And working for far left organizations like the New Jersey Working Families Party, and they've had their fair share of just crazies leading that organization. Whether it's Sue Altman, now they have Antoinette Miles. I mean, you name it, folks. I mean, that executive board just makes you cringe. But their platform, their policy prescriptions should make you cringe. And we're seeing it. Whether it's members from that organization embracing candidates that are full-fledged socialists or that identify as a democratic socialist with the Democratic Socialists of America. Folks, these are policies that don't work. Okay? They just don't. And what I can tell you, during this election cycle, we're going to see, especially in this special election in the 11th Congressional District, how residents in that district view a far left, progressive, like Ana Lilia Mejia, and a common sense candidate like Joe Hathaway. Now, I'm sure some of you tuning in tonight who like Joe or don't like Joe or like me or don't like me are going to say, well, there's Fernando showing his bias. Folks, this is opinion journalism here. Okay? Sure, I'm giving my opinion, but I'm also giving you facts. Okay? I also believe in having real conversations with real traffic because it's real talk, not a safe landing pad like Joe's opponents had with other journalists. And folks, let's be honest about the quality of journalism in New Jersey. It has gone to shit for some time now. We saw it with the decline of the Star Ledger, the editorial board with Tom Moran, good riddance to him. And we've seen other establishment news sites go to absolute shit, somehow expecting you to subscribe to a paywall like NorthJersey.com via the Bergen Record and reading columns from Chucky. You know, Charles Style. Okay? And when he's not too busy, feeding his mouth with another hot dog or a hamburger at 10 in the morning when he's appearing on other shows, he's writing awful columns. Okay? Or David Cruz, who can't seem to hold down a job. But what else is new when he's, David Cruz, it's a family show. I could say some other things. And gives a soft landing pad to progressives at every possible turn. But will scrutinize Republicans and conservatives and demonize them and villainize them, like others in establishment media. Matt Friedman, John Van Vliet, Bob Hannelly, women like Jay Lasseter. Okay? Folks, these are the people somehow telling you what's best for you. Well, I'm not here to tell you what's best for you. I'm here to tell you the truth and give you facts. As I mentioned during the interview tonight with Joe Hathaway, for as much as many on the left want to vilify someone like Joe, he's not a MAGA cultist. We got attorneys, we got some guy there who's a big defender of Oprah. I forgot what his name is. Her, him, I don't know. Looks like a guy. I don't know, whatever. Trying to define people like Joe Hathaway as crazies or cultists. No, folks, this is a family man, okay, who's been a good mayor in the town of Randolph, New Jersey. Okay. And this is a guy who could bring that real world executive experience in helping to legislate. Being a professional activist isn't a real job, Ana Lilia. And for her defenders and for her advocates and everybody else and her surrogates, that's not real work. It just isn't. We're seeing when we elect people with no real world experience, what happens? We're seeing it nearby in Jersey City. When we have two guys who've been nothing but professional activists actually have a real job now, like in Jersey City, Joe Brooks and Jake Efros. Two useless retards, folks, who now finally have a real world job And guess what? They're more concerned with bike lanes and a birdhouse than property taxes or public safety. Folks, when you elect these professional activists, you're going to get shitty representation. You're seeing it in Jersey City with two awful, atrocious council people. And folks, very well, you could see that in the 11th Congressional District if you elect a socialist like Olivia Mejia. The choice is clear, folks. Coming up on April 16th. It's Joe Hathaway. You don't have to like it, but folks, it's the truth. I'm not here about your feelings. I'm here about facts. That's what makes me different from other journalists, folks. Each and every week. Once again, a special thank you to Joe Hathaway, Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District. Folks, it's 5:40 here on the East Coast. Again, don't go anywhere because it's time for final thoughts. And folks, I talk about it often on this program. There's no shortage of bad actors or bad information actors in New Jersey. You name it, whether it's in academia, beta males and soy boys like Joe Amaditis for the Center for Cooperative Education and Media at Woke State University over there in Montclair. You have Mickey Mouse journalists like Alan Steinberg and Tom Moran and John Van Vliet. You have overpaid, do-nothing, paper-pushing government employees like Maria Rodriguez. You have useless activists like Caleb Burrell, Lauren Albrecht, Amy Torres. You have awful government officials, elected officials like Lamaga MacGyver, who think it's okay to physically shove ICE agents in front of Delaney Hall. And I get it. I mean, she's a big girl. So, I mean, the fact that even she sneezes on you, she's already assaulting you. We have other useless elected officials like Ravi Bala and Katie Brennan and Joe Quintero and Phil Cohen. And folks, again, I'm just impressed I was able to fit Phil Cohen and his nose into the collage because I didn't think it would be able to fit there. Now, these are people I go after regularly, folks, because they give me so much material, whether it's their awful takes on social media or just their behavior in general. Okay? Now, a guy who I don't want to put on this list, but a guy who really, from time to time, and mind you, folks, let me be very, very clear here. You know, I like Terrence McDonald. I think he's a damn good journalist. I think he does a great job with the New Jersey Monitor. He's a guy who really works, who puts in the hours. Unlike, let's say, Matt Friedman, who, folks, if this isn't one of the laziest bastards in media, I mean, that's saying a lot. Okay, this pothead, if he works 12 hours in a week, that's a lot. Okay, for this retard to even say on the air that he works 12 hours in a day is complete bullshit. Don't fall for that. Now, I have a lot of respect for Terrence McDonald, the editor-in-chief of the New Jersey Monitor. But this morning, as I was reading the Morning Monitor, I read it, and it just didn't sit well with me because it kind of feeds into the narrative. And again, I'm talking to you, Terrence, that, the establishment media just caters to one side completely and isn't always intellectually honest. Okay? Now, I expect this out of virtue signaling, woke warriors, like the smoke show you got there. Sophie Nieto Munoz, who identifies as Latinx, whatever the hell that means. I mean, I'm still waiting for someone to tell me that. Okay, I expect bullshit like this out of Sophie Nieto Munoz and others at the New Jersey Monitor. Okay, folks, by the way, have you ever seen Sophie? I mean, damn, what a nice little piece, hot little number. She's nice to look at whenever you go to an event. Let me just tell you. Okay. But what bothers me about Terrence in the Morning Monitor, let me just read you this here this morning. Okay. As I'm reading this and I'm just like, oh, for the love of Christ. Because you would think that for such an important cause, I would expect a little more intellectual honesty, or at least the way that Terrence writes the Morning Monitor. And again, I read it every day, and I like it, and I like reading it. Okay, but let me just give you a perspective here about how it was worded here. Let me just get to it here if I can. Okay, if you just bear with me here, folks. I'm just getting to the Morning Monitor here. Okay. Now, all right, just bear with me, folks. Again, just going through my email here. Just trying to get to it here. Just bear with me. Okay. Now, let me just see here. Terrence. Okay, here we go. So Terrence this morning writes, "Good morning. Today is a big day in Trenton." Now, again, folks, look at the wording here, because, again, I think it kind of puts into perspective about the fact that he's just sort of compartmentalizing people into one demographic, and it's just not the case. So today's a big day in Trenton as immigrant advocates. No, folks, let's be honest here. Okay, Terrence, let's call balls and strikes fairly, bro. I know you don't like sports, but let's call them balls and strikes fairly here. Okay? These are advocates to keep pushing sanctuary state policies. These are not immigrant advocates. Like, stop the bullshit, please. Okay? And President Trump supporters, which, again, that's just not true. Folks, if you believe in borders and you believe in preserving sovereignty and you believe in, guess what, letting ICE deport dangerous illegals out of New Jersey, who, let's be honest about the cost that it comes to the taxpayer here. Okay? The amount of anchor babies being born here, overcrowding our public schools, using up our resources in emergency rooms and everything else. Okay? I mean, this is the harmful effects of sanctuary state policies. So people that went today to advocate for angel families that have, again, been victimized by illegals and crime by illegals aren't just President Trump supporters. Okay? So let me just rewrite that for you, Terrence, okay? Are expected to clash over two bills that aim to protect immigrants. Well, folks, the aim is to coddle illegals. Let's be honest about what these bills do. Let's be very honest. Okay? From Trump's mass deportation effort and hobble federal agents' attempts to detain migrants here in New Jersey, to detain illegals, Terrence. What the is so difficult to just put that in writing? And again, I know you're a left-leaning guy and you're woke and you subscribe to a lot of woke bullshit. I get it. And listen, I understand you don't like me because you think that I have something against gay people and trans people. I have nothing against gay people. Okay? I have plenty of gay friends. Live and let live. I don't give a shit. Okay? You want to be gay? Be gay. You know, you're born gay. You're born gay. Great. Live your life. Don't bother me. All right? Just don't shove the bullshit down my throat. Okay? I don't need to see bullshit propaganda. Okay? But when Terrence McDonald gets all triggered because I refer to trans people as mentally ill people, that's what they are, Terrence. I'm sorry that, you don't like hearing the truth, but that's the truth. Okay? And if you want to dislike me for speaking truth, then all right, well, too bad. Okay? I'm never going to win you over. That's not something that's high on my agenda anyway. And I like your work. I like reading. I read the New Jersey Monitor every day. It's a lot better than Political New Jersey, that's for sure. And the Morning Monitor is a hell of a lot better than the New Jersey Playbook with that lazy bastard, Matt Friedman. So I give you your flowers. Again, you're a great journalist. You do a great job at the Monitor. But do me a favor, man. At least when you're writing the Morning Monitor, be effing honest or be accurate. None of the virtuous thing I see with this bullshit here. But let me continue. Okay. Trump supporters, led by Assemblyman Paul Kanitra, a Republican out of Ocean County, are hosting what they're calling a, quote, Take Back New Jersey rally at the State House in Trenton this morning. Folks, if you check out their social media, great turnout, great speakers. My good friend Matt Rooney, the editor of SafeJersey.com, was there. Alexandra Bauer, the chair of the Bergen County chapter of Moms for Liberty, was there, as well as other legislators in New Jersey and other activists, right? At the State House this morning, he pushed to target the measures that they call, quote, radical illegal immigration bills. Because it's true, it's coddling illegals. One of the bills in question would codify a 2018 State Attorney General directive that restricts when state and local law enforcement can cooperate with federal immigration agents. Again, the same bullshit about sanctuary statehood, right? Terrence won't write that because he'd rather just virtue signal with this. The other would restrict when government agencies and health care facilities can collect and share certain types of information they receive from patrons, like their immigration status or social security number. They're scheduled to get final votes in the Senate and Assembly this afternoon. The big question mark is whether Governor Mikey Sherrill would sign both of them. Sherrill has taken an aggressive stance on Trump's mass deportation efforts in some ways. On Friday, for example, she sued the administration over its plan to open a migrant detention center in Roxbury, New Jersey. But both bills in prior versions were vetoed by Sherrill's predecessor over worries that they might not hold up in court, which is very likely the case. Of course, they'll be there for the rally and for the votes. Of course, stay tuned. Now, again, folks, I have yet to see what the final result will be, but let's keep something in perspective. Illegal immigrants cost New Jerseyans billions of dollars a year. And I know many on the left and many of the virtue signalers, all the social justice clowns, and all the woke fools love to blow a load in their pants about, undocumented people contribute to our economy. Yeah, that's true, but they take a lot out of it, if not more. Folks, I work in education. I know thousands of teachers in New Jersey. Okay? Yes, I'm that popular. I know that many people. I know thousands of teachers working throughout the 500 plus school districts in New Jersey. If you don't think anchor babies are contributing to overcrowding of classroom sizes, then you're just not living in reality. You're living in your own bubble, in your own echo chamber, and you're just not living in the real world. Okay? We're seeing illegals consume resources concerning healthcare in our emergency rooms. Now, here's what's interesting that someone like Terrence McDonald probably won't write about, or others in establishment media. Actually, I can't even call the New Jersey Monitor establishment media. I mean, it's independent media, sure. It's funded separately. It's privately funded. It's not funded through tax dollars. Okay. But here in New Jersey, folks, yes, illegals do not receive Medicaid directly from the federal government. That's reserved for citizens. And even that needs an overhaul. But more on that on another day. Okay. What happens in New Jersey, like in a lot of other blue states, folks, is Medicaid dollars are funded and really put into a new fund, which essentially is NJ Family Care, which allows people living in New Jersey, whether you're citizens or here illegally, access to health care. Now, let me be very clear, folks. I think that if we all had access to health care, I think if we're a healthier population, we'll be more productive at work. We can spend more time with our families. We can be more productive there. Sure, absolutely. We can have that discussion another day. But the fact that our tax dollars in the billions go to coddle illegals in New Jersey, folks, that doesn't sit well with me. And that doesn't make me a racist, Terrence. Doesn't make me a bigot or a xenophobe or an Islamophobe or whatever other bullshit some people want to concoct. No, that's not the case. Okay? So what I just did is I rewrote that entire bullshit paragraph in this morning's Monitor. Now, I like you, Terrence, man. Again, you do great work, but do me a favor. Be a little more intellectually honest here. Okay? We know what these bills are designed to do. It's coddle illegals and stop the Department of Homeland Security, specifically ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, from doing their job or making it more difficult. Okay? And you have to excuse the pun, but federal law trumps state law. And we're learning that. Now, for the new Attorney General to waste taxpayer dollars in a lawsuit against the Trump administration, folks, they're going to lose that in court. It's as simple as that. You don't need to have a law degree to know this. And we'll see what happens in Trenton, folks. But again, in a sanctuary state like New Jersey, of course people are outraged. It doesn't make them Trump supporters, Terrence, because I know plenty of people that aren't Republicans, that aren't conservatives, aren't even Trump supporters, who are just concerned with the fact that billions of our taxpayer dollars go to coddle illegals. Okay? That money in the state budget, for example, goes into a legal fund in the Department of New Americans to provide legal representation for illegals fighting deportation. Are you happy that your tax dollars are being spent that way, Terrence? I'm not. No, I get it. You live in a nice little ritzy, nice little house in the suburbs there in Montclair. I get it. That's cool. You and your husband. Good for you. Again, God bless you. But for the rest of us that live in urban areas of New Jersey, maybe not as nice bougie areas as you do, yeah, we see every day the harmful effects of illegals. Whether it's crime, the decline of quality of life, overcrowding our schools with anchor babies, overcrowding our housing. Okay, so If regular New Jersey residents want to go protest, it doesn't make them MAGA supporters. It doesn't make them Trump supporters. It doesn't even, folks, again, this is about advocating against illegal immigration. Okay, so I fixed it there for you, Terrence. Do me a favor, bro. You do a good job, but do better when you're writing this. Stop registering. I get it. There's a certain audience. You have to placate. I get all that shit. I don't have to because I don't run a news site. Okay, I run my own media company based on opinion journalism. But do a better job here, Terrence. I like you. I like the Monitor. But reading that this morning, it was just bullshit. You're just being disingenuous. And you're better than that, Terrence. You just are. Now, folks, speaking about being disingenuous, folks, is there a better example of that than Ana Lilia Mejia, the Democrat candidate running in the 11th Congressional District in the upcoming special election on Thursday, April 16th, against my guest tonight, Joe Hathaway. But let me give you a perspective here again about her statement. And let me just read it to you because I think it bears mentioning about, quite frankly, how bullshit it is. So let me just give you perspective here. I know it's a little hard to write there, to sort of read it there. You probably have to screenshot it as you're watching the show and sort of zoom in. But let me just give you a perspective here, okay, about what the... If I can just do this here. Okay, let me just read this here. Okay, let's go through the statement here. Okay, here we go. Okay, Ana Lilia Mejia writes. Now, again, it's interesting how she writes the tweet. Sometimes I have to say the uncomfortable truth out loud. Okay, the uncomfortable thing out loud. Excuse me. A free and fair democracy requires truth and transparency. That's interesting coming from Ana Lilia Mejia. While I appreciate the League of Women Voters and their effort to create spaces of open discourse, I do not believe neutrality and diversity are ever in opposition. As a candidate seeking to represent a district in which over a third of constituents are people of color, I asked the League to commit to diversity among the proposed moderators. Sadly, they were unable to commit. I look forward to engaging them in the future when both values can be upheld. Let's continue with this bullshit. It is clear, however, that there is very little, in fact, to debate between my positions and those of my opponent. I am running to uphold the law, protect our communities, and deliver for working families. Okay. My opponent, by contrast, has aligned with those who supported the January 6th insurrection, which is not true, and continues to promote policies that undermine our democracy. I'm waiting to hear how. You go to our website, she still can't articulate anything, right? The contrast could not be clearer. I believe in expanding affordable housing at the expense of municipalities and overwhelming infrastructure, which she won't tell you that. My opponent has worked to weaken it. No, what he wants is to make sure that municipalities in New Jersey aren't overwhelmed and can sustain it, Ana Lilia. Okay? I'm fighting to lower healthcare costs at a time when premiums have doubled and over 40,000 New Jersey residents have lost coverage. My opponent supports policies that put care further out of reach. Well, folks, again, if we're talking about making sure that illegals are not getting access to healthcare, well, that's a good thing. But again, Ana Lilia will tell you that. She'll tell you 40,000 New Jersey residents, in many instances, they're illegals, but she won't tell you that. She's rather virtue signal. And it works with the low information and the low political IQ crowd in New Jersey. You know, the vote blue no matter who crowd. Right? This election is about fairness, justice, and truth. That's effing rich. Coming from a woman that doesn't want to debate anybody. Voters understand that contrast, and I trust them to make the right choice. Folks, again, this is utter bullshit here by Ana Lilia Mejia. Now, shame on her supporters. I don't expect much out of her supporters. They're the vote blue no matter who crowd. But what's interesting about this dynamic, folks, okay, is the League of Women Voters. And I've interviewed their executive director. I did that a few years ago. Okay. Not sure who it is now. Okay. But the League of Women Voters is as far left an organization as it gets, folks. There's nothing conservative about them. There's nothing objective or moderate about them. They're as far left as it comes in New Jersey. And again, it says in the League of Women Voters, okay, to shun them I think does a great disservice to the constituents she's looking to serve. Now, again, that's rich coming from a party and many within the Democrat Party that can't tell you what a woman is. And by the way, it is March. So once again, happy Women's History Month. But let me be very clear about the women we're celebrating. Women, biological women, women with a uterus, women with ovaries, okay? Women who menstruate, okay? Not pregnant people, not menstruating people. No, human biological females. Those are the women that I'm saluting during Women's History Month. Not men playing make-believe, not men in dresses, okay? Not men looking to cut off their junk. No. We're talking about real women, not the trans, mentally ill bullshit, okay? But you would think that an organization that stands up for women as much as the League of Women Voters does, and Uribe Media still can't even come to a compromise with them? Folks, what does it say about her ability to compromise with anybody? That's just the truth. And I get it. Again, the vote blue no matter who crowd, and we all know the types, folks. We see plenty here in Hudson County, okay, who are more concerned with pronouns than property taxes or public safety, okay. You would think that someone that's supposedly a populist, someone that supposedly is for working families. Well, and let me ask you something. If you're for working families, why are you trying to bankrupt working families with some of these awful policy restrictions? Green housing and other green energy policies. Folks, we know they don't work. Look what's happening in California. Look at the failure of wind farms in New Jersey. Okay? Again, what will it take for people on the left and the vote blue no matter who crowd to understand that these far left policies don't work? As I mentioned it with Joe Hathaway tonight, this abolish ICE bullshit. Folks, that's not realistic. Okay? A little history lesson for everybody. Okay? After the terrorist attacks by Islamic extremists in September of 2001, within 2 years, we saw the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, which helped to consolidate a lot of federal agencies, which dropped the ball to begin with, leading up to the terrorist attacks in September of 2001. Now, previously, immigration was coupled with the Naturalization Service, henceforth INS, the agency we knew for many decades. Subsequently, we saw ICE become codified into, again, within the agencies themselves, within immigration and customs enforcement. And since 2003, multiple administrations, from George W. Bush to Barack Obama, okay, to the first Trump term, to sleepy Joe Biden, and now the second Trump term. Okay, and even before ICE was created in 2003, again, under the Department of Homeland Security Act, we have presidents like Bill Clinton deporting more people than any other president this century. Abolishing ICE isn't realistic. Now, I've said it before because folks, again, I'm intellectually honest on the show. I'm not like these little Mickey Mouse journalists, like Max Pizarro, who never leaves his house, or Tom Moran, who's like 90 years old and just, again, waiting for the inevitable any day now. Okay? Or Charles Style, who's too busy, stuffing his face with another hamburger at 10 in the morning. Okay? Or Matt Freeman, that's more concerned and getting his dick wet with, growing homegrown weed and actually doing real work. Okay? But let me give you a little bit of a civics lesson here about why this isn't feasible. Okay? Because other journalists won't talk about this. ICE has a dangerous job, but it certainly merits some improvement. Should ICE agents have more than 47 days of training? Absolutely. You won't get any disagreement from me. I've worked in the criminal justice system, folks. I understand what training is, so I'm all for that. Should we have body cams on ICE agents? Sure, absolutely, certainly. We have it with all other forms of law enforcement. Here in New Jersey, we have it with sheriff's officers, state police, and every municipal police department. You're going to hear a complaint from me. Can some things be done to better modify, again, training and techniques with ICE? Absolutely. But it's a necessary agency doing a dangerous job because, folks, again, we have to believe in borders. We have to believe in sovereignty because that's written into our Constitution. And I know so many people with law degrees that somehow, when you hear them talk at rallies or on their social media, you can tell they slept through constitutional law in law school. I didn't. When I took con law in grad school at Rutgers with Dr. Elizabeth Hull, shout out to Dr. Hull, by the way, got an A in the course, as if you're surprised. But I too understand the importance of sovereignty and preserving federal immigration law, which again, that is the responsibility of the executive branch. Now, Congress being the part of the legislative branch can amend when it comes to federal legislation, such as the Department of Homeland Security, sure. But abolishing ICE isn't realistic, folks. But left-wingers like Uribe Mejia and all these virtue-signaling progressives will tell you otherwise. And unfortunately, the low-information voters on the left in New Jersey fall for this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. Don't be fooled, folks. We need ICE to do their job. New Jersey, like a lot of other sanctuary states, are overrun with illegals. They drain our resources. All these anchor babies overcrowd our schools. It's as simple as that. That's not being mean. That's not being, malicious. That's being truthful. Because I'll tell you the truth on this show, folks. Unlike other journalists who bullshit you at every turn, I'm not going to bullshit you. Why should I? I don't believe in that. That's not responsible journalism. But you would think that during an election season, when you want to debate your opponent, because again, if Uribe Mejia had the better ideas, she should be all eager to debate them. She should be all eager to get on a stage with her Republican opponent, Joe Hathaway, and again, talk it out, debate. But the fact that she's avoiding debates and the fact that she's even going to these lengths to make sure that everything is in her favor. Honey, do you want the room temperature at a certain degrees? Do you want to make sure, I don't know, will there be gluten-free refreshments there? Okay. I'm going to make sure that, I don't know, there's kosher food there too, or I don't know. I'm going to make sure we have sugar-free, carbonated drinks. What more do you want in your favor, Uribe? And when you are blatantly, essentially slapping the League of Women Voters in the face, what does it say about you? Where you have to depend on women. Now, I get it, folks. There's going to be those women that mail in their ballots already, and they'll be like, I'll vote for Democrat because I vote blue no matter who, I get it. Those voters exist within the Democrat Party. They exist in all 21 counties in New Jersey. Okay? But what does it say about a woman literally spitting in the face of other women who, let's be honest, folks, the League of Women Voters would be elated and ecstatic to see Uribe Mejia get elected. They're all about identity politics and all that bullshit. Oh, let's get a woman. Yeah. Toda esa mierda. Whatever. What does it say when Uribe Mejia is even shunning them? Is that transparency? Is that democracy? Is that being real, Uribe? No, mija. Tú sabes que estás mintiendo. Okay? And unfortunately, in a race this close, this might turn the tide for someone like Joe Hathaway, a common sense candidate who has executive experience running a small town. That's a hell of a lot more than Uribe can brag about. What? Being a professional activist? That's not real work, folks. That's not a real job. Okay? We're seeing it, as I mentioned before, with goofs like Jake Efros and Joe Brooks in Jersey City. We have professional activists that have never had a real job before. Now they actually have to do real work. They're shitty at it. Folks, what makes you think Uribe Mejia is not going to be shitty at her job either? Kind of makes you wonder, right? Folks, you have choices coming up on April 16th. The best one is Joe Hathaway. Not because I just interviewed him, because the facts tell you that. And if Annalena Mejia is hiding right now, imagine if she gets elected. How much more is she going to hide from her constituents and from any accountability? Because her followers and her advocates and her surrogates won't hold her accountable. Folks, it's up to you, the voters, in the 11th Congressional District to hold her accountable. Teach her a lesson on April 16th and elect Joe Hathaway to the House of Representatives. And those are my final thoughts. And again, folks, I can't say it enough. You have options, again, in the 11th Congressional District. Folks, a special comment tonight. And we know what's coming up this weekend. Yes, folks, cat ladies, obese feminists, and all the Karens, unite. It's like Avengers assemble. Yes, folks, this Saturday, all throughout New Jersey and probably throughout the country, we'll have yet another insufferable demonstration known as the No Kings March. Okay? And I'm sure, folks, and if you need an excuse or if you need a reason to get summer ready and say, you know what, I want to make sure when I go to the beach, whether it's down the shore or a vacation overseas, I want to make sure I get summer ready. Folks, look no further than the motivation you're going to have is go to your local No Kings rally. Here in Hudson County, go to Weehawken, go to Guttenberg, go to West New York, go to Hoboken, go to Secaucus, and go to Jersey City. There'll be no shortage of obese women and smelly cat ladies and all the Karens with purple hair, the nose ring militia, you name it, folks. Okay? All the insufferable lesbians and whatever else, folks, if you need a reason or motivation to get summer ready, take a walk there. You'll be hitting a treadmill right after that. And again, folks, shout out to the women and even the beta males. These grown men who paint their fingernails and whatever, wear the little scarves and everything. Yes, so folks, again, shout out to them. I mean, this Saturday will be the most cardio they'll probably do all year. Okay? And it's embarrassing, folks. And of course, we've seen some local news outlets and even other outlets throughout the state talking about what's coming this Saturday. And again, you can check out the Jersey Times with their coverage as activists do plan, again, a No Kings protest nearby here in Jersey and Hoboken. As I mentioned before, there'll be no shortage of just fat, ugly women, folks, in Weehawken, in Guttenberg, in West New York, Secaucus, you name it, Montclair. Okay? Clifton, Allendale, Nutley, Toms River, New Brunswick, Newark, Morristown, you name it, folks. There'll be no shortage of these insufferable, hideous-looking beasts virtue signaling and somehow crying about, oh, no kings. Folks, let me give you an education about no kings. Okay? Let me just give you an education here about the utter stupidity that you're going to be subjected to if you happen to go to a No Kings rally. And again, folks, number one, make sure you shower, because I doubt many of the people there won't shower. So, bring some, nose clippings or something, some smelling salt. You might pass out from the body odor there. Okay. Might need a tetanus shot on Sunday. So I know there's a lot of urgent cares that'll be open. So if you need be, get a tetanus shot. And you might lose some brain cells, not because you're smoking weed or you might smell some weed in the air. You might lose some brain cells listening to these idiots on microphones. But isn't it interesting, folks? The people at these upcoming No Kings, and we've seen it from last summer. I saw it in Weehawken in June and then in October. Also in West New York and Secaucus and everything else. Isn't it interesting, folks? The people you'll see this Saturday. Okay? The women with more rolls in a bakery, the beta males who you can hear the estrogen in their voice. Reminds me of like Isaac Jimenez and others. Hector Segura with the femininity in their voice. They'll be there. Don't worry. They'll be there like, no kings, no kings, no kings. with that femininity in their voice. And we all know the types. All right. Let me be very clear about no kings. Okay, folks? Here's where the hypocrisy gets rich. These are the same people that talk about no kings, but remember, better put your mask on. No kings, but you need to abide by our lockdowns. And you saw that in blue states, like here in New Jersey, under 8 years of Phil Murphy. Okay? No kings, but hey, you can get fired if you refuse to get vaccinated. Really? Not a peep from this crowd on that, but no kings. No kings, but you can't be outside. Again, no kings, but you have to stay 6 feet apart from what we've come to learn is a scamdemic. Okay? Folks, I'm not saying I'm Wolverine from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but let me tell you something. And let me be very real about what COVID was. Okay? You're looking at a guy who over the years partied in Miami, partied during spring break, partied in Vegas, okay, spent the night at motels on Tennessee Avenue here in Hudson County, down the shore in Belmar and other parts, okay, drank from the water fountain in Hudson County Park, James J. Braddock Park, okay. I've hooked up with some pretty questionable women, okay, maybe not the most sanitary of women, okay. I survived all of this and never got COVID. And I'm not vaccinated either. But it's people at the No Kings rally that would easily vilify someone like me because I chose not to get vaccinated. Not because of politics, because I know some locals that subscribe to that bullshit. No, that's not true. Okay, folks, I remember, we always remember these moments. Being a senior at Memorial High School, where it was required to get a flu shot. And folks, you'll never forget, when you get a bad reaction to a shot, you never forget that for the rest of your life. And I remember what an awful feeling I had when I was just 18 years old after getting a flu shot as a high school senior. And after that, I said, folks, I don't care if I'm on my deathbed. I'm not getting any shots of any kind. And I've been consistent about that. But these are the same people that would vilify me and would say, Fernando deserves to lose his job. These are the same people screaming about no kings, right? No kings, but you have to say goodbye to your dying loved ones from an iPad. How many of us had to deal with loved ones dying alone in a hospital room? But no kings. No te olvide, right? No kings, but hey, you better show proof of vaccination before you enter a venue. These are the same idiots on Saturday that are crying about the oppression of voter ID laws. But you know what? If you want to go eat something or go to a restaurant, you better have your vax card. You see what I'm saying, folks? The level of come mierda that we're going to see this Saturday, that's what we're going to see in Weehawken, in Guttenberg, in Secaucus, in West New York, in Morristown, in Hoboken, in Jersey, you name it, all around. These are the same retards that will convey the same bullshit narrative. Oh, no kings, but make sure you line up for your 10th booster. Que me come mierda. Oh, no kings, but you can't have gatherings in your home with more than 8 people. Oh my God, the spread. Okay. No kings, but hey, it's okay to call a hotline to rat on your neighbors if they're not complying. Okay. No kings, but you had no problem whether you lived in New Jersey or in New York or in Connecticut or in Pennsylvania or in California, where I know people all across the country in blue states who were subjected to tyrannical, draconian mandates when it came to the scamdemic. And not a peep out of these idiots. But Saturday, they're going to be there. And Saturday, they're going to be crying, no kings, the end of democracy. No, folks, it's comiendo mierda. And you're going to see that from all these disgusting obese feminists, from all these Karens and cat ladies, and all these beta males with their painted fingernails and their little scars and their little, and you can hear the estrogen in their voice, like, no kings, no kings, no kings. Yes, folks, that's the level of buffoonery you're going to see this Saturday. So again, tread carefully, be careful. You don't want to get too near them. You might need a tetanus shot on Sunday. You might lose some brain cells. But more importantly, folks, you'll probably just get infuriated with the level of stupidity and buffoonery that really is the No Kings rally. The same people that will cry about, oh my God, trans rights are human rights. No, they're not. It's bullshit. You're coddling mentally ill people. That's what trans people are. Stop comiendo mierda. Seriously. They're the same ones that will walk around with their rainbow flags and all this and that, folks. For the last 4 years, previously, under the Joe Biden administration and under Democrat governors, a lot of you marching Saturday had no problem seeing people lose their jobs, lose their businesses, be fined, be jailed in some instances. And that's okay. That wasn't draconian. That wasn't fascistic. That wasn't tyrannical. But somehow right now, we're living under tyranny. What rights have you lost? Women, what rights have you lost? You can still vote. I don't think some of you should vote, but you still have the right to vote. Okay? If you're gay, what rights have you lost? Okay? If you're an illegal, for God's sakes, Jesus Christ, you're coddled in New Jersey. It's a sanctuary state. You'll get aid. Your anchor babies can overcrowd our schools. Like, what exactly is being infringed upon? But again, folks, that's the level of retardation. I'm sorry. Let me be nice. I promised a social worker I know. This is the level of cognitively delayed people that we're dealing with. Folks, these are children. They're not to be taken seriously. So again, you want to go march? Go march. But we all know you're full of shit. Because when you had a chance to speak out against what really was tyrannical, you chose to stay silent. That's why I can't take you seriously. And quite frankly, that's why I never will. And that's my special comment. Folks, that's our show for this week. Once again, I want to thank Joe Hathaway, Republican candidate running in the 11th Congressional District coming up in the special election on April 16th. You haven't mailed in your ballots yet, you still have a chance to do so. And I'm sure, obviously, early voting will start sometime in April. And of course, you can vote on Election Day. Folks, you have options in the 11th Congressional District. It's definitely Joe Hathaway. Trust me on that. Again, you can check out all the episodes here. Folks, again, share the episode tonight on all your social media. Make sure you like us on Facebook. Of course, follow us on Instagram and X. And also make sure you download Jersey First on YouTube. And also subscribe on our SoundCloud and Spotify channel. You can take Jersey First with you anywhere at any time, whether you're doing food shopping, maybe checking out your brackets, seeing what teams made the Sweet 16 during March Madness. Hey, maybe you're doing your fantasy draft coming up for the MLB season. Whatever it is you're doing, folks, take Jersey First with you. You'll never be disappointed. Folks, always here, I'm proud to be leading the way on Jersey First TV. Of course, always educating, advocating for the residents here in the great state of New Jersey. That's right, folks, we're doing it here. And also check out brand new episodes of Bridging the Gap as it returns on Jersey First TV. Check your start times, of course, on all of our social media platforms. And check the start times for Real Talk every Monday night here on the Jersey First Television Network. And folks, I can't say enough. If it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. That's right, folks. I want to thank my guest tonight, Joe Hathaway, the mayor of Randolph, and hopefully soon to be a member of the House of Representatives in the 11th Congressional District coming up on Thursday, April 16th. So again, folks, can't say enough. Like, comment, and share. It takes 5 seconds to help the show grow and show your support for fearless independent media. Real fearless independent media. Not that some of the little Mickey Mouse journalists out there. Now, folks, you can always trust Real Talk here on the Jersey First Television Network. That's right, folks. And again, I'll continue to be the generational talent in Garden State Media and so your leader for trustworthy opinion journalism. That's right, folks. It's me, Fernando Uribe, saying so long. Please party responsibly. Again, enjoy March Madness this weekend. Certainly enjoy the start of the 2026 Major League Baseball season. Let's go Yankees. Let's see what they do during this season. And of course, folks, let's go Lakers as the playoff push is approaching here in the NBA. And quite frankly, folks, it's the road to WrestleMania. Really, less than a month ago until the Showcase of the Immortals, the Super Bowl of sports entertainment and professional wrestling coming up next month in Vegas. Folks, a lot going on during the springtime. Once again, we'll keep you posted here on the best analysis and commentary you've always come to expect with Real Talk via Jersey First TV. Folks, again, enjoy the rest of your week. Please party responsibly. Thanks for stopping by. And always remember, stay classy, everyone.